amusement redemption amusements. We regulate game rooms inside of that. Chapter 46 is vehicles for hire. That's taxi cabs, limousines, jitneys, pedicabs, low speed shuttles, school vehicles. I'm forgetting some others.
Metal recyclers.
Metal recyclers. Chapter 30, noise permits, amplified noise permits, subject to this exact same thing.
Liquor licenses.
What?
Liquor licenses.
A little bit different.
Yeah, see, SOBs, liquor licenses, these bars that are open till 2 in the morning that back up to neighborhoods, they're not being shut down
15 minutes
after,
is maybe
you know,
15%
people
or
are
more.
constantly complaining. So
Everybody knows that.
to me, we're too lenient on that versus a dog,
Well-
doggy daycare operator.
Well, I think alcohol-related businesses are tough because of the distinction between the jurisdiction distinction. Ultimately, they're governed by the TAs.
But not the noise part.
No, but our officers know. But the fact of the those places do receive citations. They can have one of the revisions that we recently made. My goodness, I love the noise ordinance. One of the revisions that we made in October of 2011 was to say that you previously had to have an amplified sound permit. You could only get one 2 times in any, welcome to my night. You could only get a permit 2 times in any rolling 30-day period, so we created a couple of new permit classes, one of which was an annual permit. We also said it's unlawful to operate a business in such a way that you produce sound above the maximum permissible sound levels, which did not change. So what we changed essentially was you have to have an amplified sound permit if you're going to play music above this level. If you don't have one, then that is an offense separate from just playing your music too loud. So, but we don't have the ability through Chapter 30 to shut things down. We don't have the ability to, most of the complaints that we get about noise ordinances, incidentally, relate to single-family residences. Noise complaints from bars and restaurants comprise about 2.23% of the total calls for service that we receive in the city of Houston. I had to go through this analysis recently. 2.23% of total calls for service, that's complaints in the city of Houston about noise, come from bars and restaurants. About, I don't remember the 100th decimal places, but about 4% come from animals. Most of the from animals. 4%, yeah. Most of the complaints that we get about noise from a citywide basis, this is what HPD receives, come from single-family residences. It's about 60%, multifamily residences, and then neighbors. So that's both, but it's more vehicles squealing their tires than it is vehicles playing music loud. And incidentally, again, when we revised the noise ordinance in 2011, HPD previously received about 58,000 calls for service before we revised it. In the couple of years since we've revised it, those calls for service has decreased to 46,000 and 42,000. Don't quote me, it's been a while since I looked at that spreadsheet. It's going in the right way. Not there yet, but to circle back now, hopefully this is another non-tweet answer. Chapter 30 doesn't give us the ability to shut things down. And it wasn't intended to do that. There are a number of different businesses, far more, and I'd be happy to provide a litany. Let me go back and pull down the other areas of the code where this exists. There are a number of different commercial activities that are subject to this type of proceeding. It's not unique to what we're proposing. And again, I think the thresholds that you have to cross to trigger that are pretty high. And I think I just think they're pretty high. But I'll try to give you as many examples as I can.
Well, no, is it going to be subjective? So ACO turns out, and anytime you invite a new person into any dog daycare, they just go, the dogs are excited, and that's not, with employees there, they know the employees, that everybody's pretty calm or whatever. But is it going to be subjective or is it going to be objective? In other words, are we going to have meters, to determine if it's too loud or? Are you going to go to the neighbor's house that's complaining to see can you actually hear the dog?
Yeah. So the way that the noise ordinance reads is you determine, the determination as to whether or not the noise is too loud is not at the source site. Meaning you don't go inside the playroom
Okay,
and listen to the residents banging off the cinder block or whatever. You go to the property line of the location where the person is living that's making the complaint, and that's where you listen. It is subjective, but it's subjective in the sense it's tied to a standard that's been employed in many different cases. It's the reasonable person standard again. It's been tried at the Supreme Court and been upheld to be reasonable. It is subjective. We can't get away from it, but I think that works in favor of businesses in many instances. One of the things that we're sensitive to, really going back to noise, we don't want businesses to be worried about neighbors who are just mad that they moved in to a place next door to an existing commercial pet service facility. I'm sure this happens with bars all the time. We know that that goes on. Just because we get a complaint does not mean that a citation is going to be issued.
Well, that was my question that I was asked. I have a dog grooming shop been there 27 years. And so, one of her questions, but the noise level, you have somebody that moves in next door to you, they've never been there before, they move in, they start complaining about noise. Now, we put up sound barrier on our walls, just trying to stop, but they'll start complaining. So they call you and say, well, they're too loud. Now, I've been there. I was there a long time before they ever moved in. So who's at fault? Am I gonna have to close down because they say my noise is too loud? And one other question, when you're talking about putting up the signs, oh, you can call, bark, and complain. Well, you know, I've been in business a long time, and I don't care who you are, you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
And it's forever the groomer's fault. I don't care. I had a lady call and complain about her cat got sick when she took it to the vet after I bathed it 3 months prior. 3 months. I said, ma'am, and I keep records. I said, ma'am, I bathed your cat 3 months ago. She said, well, the vet said it was your fault. Whatever. So now you have the sign. I swear. You have this sign up said, if you have a complaint or you're unhappy, call BART. Now, how many complaints do I get from a customer? I promise you, I had one, I made the man sign a paper saying I could shave his dog because it was so mad at him. But his wife comes in the next day screaming at me, telling me how I ruined her dog and it was a show dog and her daughter was hysterical. So now she calls BART and she complains. Now, that's two. You know, so here I am. And I think to be in business in the same location for 27 years, I got to be an okay person. But you got 2 complaints. Where do you stand?
We have no idea. We never know what you may decide to do when you wake up.
We have no idea where you're coming from, Bart, because we make everyone happy. Nobody's ever upset with us. We have no idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens so often in the grooming, it's always the groomer's fault. I mean,
Complaints have to
I don't
result in
care.
citations.
And I'm not saying we haven't done things that shouldn't
I
have
think
been done.
if we back up here, I mean, if someone says, I mean, if you get a closely grouped animal, that's not my problem.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not feeding a boarded animal and they come back and, you know, the dog's lost 3 pounds or something, that's a condition that we.
What has to happen is we have to issue a citation. That citation has to go before a judge, potentially a jury, and be reviewed by that body and say, yep, you know what?
But are you
That's
issuing a
okay.
citation on every complaint?
No.
That's
No,
my question is.
no,
You have
absolutely.
this complaint issue that's going to be, I can assure you, if you put it up at a grooming shop, you're gonna get complaints.
No.
I mean, it's gospel, I mean, it's just what happened. So, so is it going to be?
I get phone calls all day, every day, from something about their neighbor this, their neighbor that, the dog, the neighbor, you know. I go settle it first with that other party. BART is not the grievance committee for a neighbor who's fault.
Well, I just didn't know how the complaint issue was
No,
going here, that's
And
why.
that's, that is difficult to do because you do it in the transportation, and we're gonna need to wrap up or at least decide on alternate means of communication here pretty soon, because we're coming up on 8:30, but, I think we do that in the transportation industry because there's kind of inherent things that are going on in that market. There's not available information to all the people that are using that type of service all the time. That's the reason that we provide that information. I'm not so sure that we may that would be appropriate in this case, because folks can be more educated consumers. But we'll look at that, and it's a double-edged sword, it's a fine line to tread as well. So, Mr. Howard, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, actually, a more technical question, but you mentioned here about, we're talking about animal cruelty convictions. First of all, animal cruelty prosecutions are extremely rare, especially Harris County. And out of those that are rare, most of them result in a deferred adjudication, which is not a conviction. Is this taken into account that a conviction includes deferred adjudication, or is this technically sense it's not a deferred adjudication?
Carolyn wants it to be a conviction.
Which is very few people that's going to actually snare. So, most of them are going to judge.
But I think we're gonna continue our practice of, if you turn in an animal and bark and you sign a piece of paper that says that, you know, the animal will be euthanized, we're not gonna adopt the animal back to you. If you're a bad operator, you know, we're not gonna, but if you've been convicted of animal cruelty, we're definitely not gonna
I mean,
adopt
you have to
it.
understand too, from a practical standpoint, when you talk about someone coming in that has obviously treated an animal inappropriately, they're gonna lie to me, it ain't my dog.
This is for
Okay.
conviction for animal cruelty for adoption.
Now, for me to be able to go in and say, you know, you're a vet, you know, I can't make that decision, you know, and say that you're a cruelty person, and then I'm never gonna be able to give you another animal again. But if you adopt an animal and you bring it back, and you treated it badly, and you leave it here, you're not getting another one. Does that make clarity for that? But I mean, that's what happens 99 times out of 100. People just simply tell
We'll
us
pass down.
what they want to hear.
So, guys, we've got, it's 8:30.
Yeah.
And we are at the end of the time. I can't ask, we got folks that live a long, far way away. I know some of you do too, probably.
But we thank you all very much.
So I was just gonna say, you were gonna call the Houston Chronicle about, the registration, selling animals. And a lot of cities like Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Monterey, California, and San
Sure.
Francisco. If you find a lost animal or lost and found, a lot of these businesses, newspapers, will let you place an ad for lost and found animals for free. And that might help people find their lost animals in these huge cities. Because there's plenty of them.
That's good.
Yeah, I think, yeah, to the extent that we can get, one of the challenges we have, and then I'll make the argument, I guess. One of the challenges that we have that we've been trying to address is to get people, if you've lost your pet, to come to bark, call bark. We put out some additional material on our website, and I think, I don't know where Ashton is, when did we start? We've been trying to provide our Facebook page as a platform for kind of one place that people can go to, but the fact of the matter is that people live in, we've been doing that for about 6 months at least.
At least.
January.
Yeah, since about January.
But one of the things, it's tough because people live in different parts of town, animals get lost in different parts of town, so you will always see below whenever someone posts on our Facebook page, for example, share this on Heights Facebook page to share it on Kingwood or Fort Bend or what have you. So it's difficult because I think everyone would be better off if you're in or near Houston, to just go to the park. Or call us or do it yourself.
Art has got, because of the kill factor, a lot of people don't.
I do not understand why, given that, and I think I'd love to have a long conversation about that itself, why that would not urge everyone to get there faster. I don't understand how that logic
Because there's so
prevents
many,
someone from coming.
you see so many people in certain neighborhoods where they just throw their little animals out.
That's true.
And
That's true.
it's, you're like a nurse, you become callous to it.
I wish that were true.
And that's,
I wish that were true. So thank you, Mary, for those comments. So it's 8:30, it's past 8:30 now. What happens next? I think this was a pretty great meeting. I think we got some pretty solid feedback from you all on things that we ought to revisit. I think we're going to talk about what we need to do next with respect to additional meetings. I think we've had a number of them. This was pretty good. But we'll talk, we'd love your insight if you think we ought to have another meeting, but I think this is pretty productive. And what would happen next is, absent some call for additional meetings on what we proposed, or some additional stakeholder group that exists somewhere that says that they'd like another formal process, we'd like to go to the city council committee in the near term on this. That could be end of October, it could be November, but we intend to move this. We'd like to get this done before the end of the year. I think we're in a position to be able to do that, but we'd love your feedback on that as well. So what we are going to do now, we have this video archive. I told you before that we're going to post this on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, which is www.youtube.com/wearebark, all together. I think we'll be able to provide a link to that on our homepage too. That's pretty easy to find.
That'll be available in the next couple of days. In the next couple of days.
No.
Possibly,
Not
but
tomorrow.
maybe not.
Not tomorrow.
Good try.
We'll let everybody know. You can
Jackson, get on it.
We'll update it. We'll probably make the announcement on our Facebook page or via Twitter that it's available. We've got your email addresses, so we'll update everyone. You've given us a number of things to go back and look at, and to look at more closely and to rethink on a couple of issues. So when we come to kind of our best next shot and on those points, we'll send everyone an email saying, here's a new link to the updated draft, let us know what you think, and try to provide you with reasons on why we landed where we landed. Okay? So if anyone has any questions in the meantime, I've written my email address up there just to provide a single point of contact. I think that's simplest. I'm not going to hold those emails hostage. I'll be sure to pass them along to everybody.
Very generous.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I'm a giver. So if you would, please, the more information and the more feedback we can have, the better off we are. If you think there's a silly question, it's not silly, I promise. So with that, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank y'all.
What is the cost of the permit?
For the commercial pet service? For the commercial pet service?
Right.
Yeah, do you remember this?